So this is prior to Scott Olson getting shot in the face with a tear gas canister. So this is how many people showed up prior to that event in Occupy Boston. And you can just watch the people march by. So you can see that the different range of people that are involved in the movement. So from Lowell, Massachusetts, at the near the end of my senior year, my parents picked me up and relocated me to conservative West Michigan, and it was definitely a culture shock. I went from liberal Massachusetts to cow country and fundamentalist Christians. It was very interesting. I worked for a time at WKLQ and WLAB and rock and roll radio. I worked as a contract. I worked out contracts, so I would do promotions, and I also like did time on the air and stuff like that. But because I was contract and an hourly employee, I never got paid full time. I never got benefits. I never had health care. I was going to school part time, struggling to make ends meet. And then 9/11 happened. I was pretty jaded at the world. Misanthrope, definitely. Ticks and mosquitoes are the worst species, except for me. You know, Colin Powell tricked me. I thought that we had a good reason to go to Iraq. I joined the Navy, and you know, I got sent to Iraqi territorial waters on a PC 180 feet long, crew of 30 men, and we protected the oil platform that fills the super tankers that ship oil all around the world. Now everyone says, you know, hey, we went to Iraq, at least we could have got some oil for it. Well, what happened was we did. Because we opened up those markets to multinational corporations, we expanded the supply. Therefore, our costs were lowered. So even though that oil was not shipped directly to you know, facilities in the United States, we still benefited from the murder of lots of civilians. You know, and I just look around and I look at how Wall Street acts, how the government acts, and how we individually act as people. And I'm wondering if the raping and the pillaging of Earth's finite natural resources, you know, it's all for Kardashian gossip, World of Warcraft, and fantasy football. You know, if you think the system is fine, then you need to educate yourself. We don't have time today for me to educate you, but if you want, we can discuss fees and stuff. Hopefully you can sense my frustration, and I hope you empathize with my frustration. The Occupy movement, I think, is a grand awakening. That, you know, we can see from the results in the poll that, you know, pretty much everyone agrees that that the government and Wall Street suck. I mean, I don't know, is that?
That wasn't the question.
So anyway, you know, the movement is a source of hope for me. I don't want to go into specifics. You know, it is I think it is a reaction to the Tea Party that wants to kill government. And I think government needs our support, it needs our money, and it needs proper regulations to run things. So now what I do is, as a student here and as, I guess, an organizer, there's no hierarchy, but anyway, as an organizer, a facilitator, you know, this is what I do. I march. I've been involved in 4 or 5 marches in Boston. I help organize people here. If, you know, I obviously have my YouTube page, which is www.youtube.com/KeatsMedia, one word. You know, I urge you to check it out. If you feel like something needs to be done, get involved. You know, me and Jay can't do this by ourselves. There's a momentum going, you know, catch it, ride it, and we can make real change. If you have any questions, come see me anytime. Thank you.
state to state my entire life, and it's probably 15 to 20,000. I went to the Iraq War in 2006. I saw Fallujah, the infantry, and later intelligence analysis. My job was to work on security, make sure everything was safe, figure out what the bad guys were up to. I got PTSD from the war. When I came back, it took me a few years to get back on my feet, and I started college. My interest is political science. A lot of my interest in political science is trying to figure out about the war, why we went there, what we got from it. I read with a man called Puller, who was a Marine general in the 1930s. He argued that a lot of our wars were because of corporate interests. He argued that he's spent 30 years in the Marine Corps fighting these wars to benefit corporations in the United States, and I would say that things haven't really changed that much. When I got back from the war, I was able to go to college on the GI Bill. I got disability from the government program, my PTSD, and I have full health care from the military. So when I look at my situation is really that I have problems with my life and where I'm coming from. My concern is for everyone who doesn't have those benefits. I doubt many of you are able to go to college for free. A lot of you don't loans. Most of you probably don't have health care. And I think that is a very big situation. You shouldn't have to go to a war to get health care or to get college or anything like that. I think that those really should be human rights. Those should be American rights. You shouldn't get those by gaining a citizen here. And I find it problematic that you have to go to these extremes to get the benefits which I have. And I got involved with Occupy because of that. I'm concerned with the influence of corporations on government, which as was not possible and hasn't changed that much. I got concerned with the gap between rich and poor. I see how hard my fellow students work and what they get for it, and I don't feel that those are related. I started to Occupy UMass Lowell about a month ago. We have a Facebook page, we have a YouTube channel, and we've been doing weekly organizations. We try to get people down to march every week or so. I've done 2 marches. I was at the march that you saw on TV now, and I expect they're going to do some more. We are concerned about the winter. We're not sure if we're going to do tents or not, how we're going to do marches, how it's going to slow us down. But I don't think that's going to stop us. I think that we're going to get through winter. I think that we're going to have our own Arab Spring here in the United States for the next few months, and I think that we are going to do some changes.
Thank you very much. Great presentations. Let's open it up to discussion. Question?
Well, not. Never mind, I'll go with it.
All right. Someone else?
I think the professor, and I'm sorry I forget your name, when you mentioned about the levels of privilege that we have in this country. When Occupy Wall Street first started, I noticed that there was very little media coverage about it, as compared to the Tea Party. I thought the Tea Party got an awful lot of favorable coverage. And one of the things that I feel very strongly about is the issue of free press. I'm not sure if we have that anymore. And partly I go back to, and Chancellor, you may correct me on this, when you were working very hard for political campaign finance, many of those people in Washington who were trying to defeat it were the communication industry themselves. They make a lot of money on campaigns. And so what do we do about that? How, I mean, thank goodness for the internet where we can get alternate views, but still, people are channeling into Fox, CBS, ABC, and they have strong interest in keeping the status quo.
Well, first of all, it's not that Jennifer Whitten-Woodring, and she is an outstanding faculty member.
Oh, okay.
And I'll let Jennifer go first, and I'll comment on that.
Yeah, it's a really good point about the challenges to media freedom in the United States. I will say, because I study media freedom in a comparative fashion, compared to other countries, our media are remarkably free in that reporters are not stopped when they go out to do their jobs. However, we have a problem in this country, and that is that it has to do with the way our media are professionalized. So a professionally trained journalist, and I speak from experience, I was a journalist, we are taught to go to the highest level of sources that we can gain access to, right? So if I'm covering a story, I want to get the highest level politician that I can, reaction from that person. If I'm covering a story that has to do with the banking industry, I want the CEO or the CFO of that particular company. So it's not that journalists have some evil agenda that they're all united to carry out against, but I think that it's actually an effort on the part of journalists to be more professional that results in this phenomenon. We call it indexing, actually. So the debate that we see in mainstream media is largely an index, if you will, of the debate among political and economic elites. That's a pretty standard criticism of the media in the United States. But we do, as U.S. citizens, have remarkable access to alternative media. We have to go out and find it. It's easier now to some degree with the internet, although a lot of the news on the internet is actually based on mainstream media coverage.
You asked me, I'm going to comment on it too. One of the things I feel most depressed about is the fact that newspapers across America, circulation going down, revenue going down, they're cutting the number of investigative reporters who work for every major newspaper in America, and I think that's bad for investigative journalists. It's just not a good trend. I worry about the trend about people not reading newspapers. The other point you asked me about campaign finance reform, it is true that some of the networks were opposed to free television time, which is really the major expense of campaigns in America. I think the most devastating case was the Supreme Court case of Citizens United. That had a devastating effect on our effort to regulate campaign finance in this country. No one should ever make any mistake about it. Unlimited money in political campaigns corrupts the process, period. It just does. It has a corrupting influence on all the decisions that are made in Washington. Next question. You ready?
Well, I just wanted to comment on something she said. It might be a little off topic, but she said there's the use of the internet where we can find alternative points of view on this. And it might be a little off topic, but I want to say that I really do think that even that is kind of under attack by, for instance, net neutrality.
You want to comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, the internet, first of all, the internet is a medium, and it can be used by anyone, and it can be controlled. So if we're under I certainly by no means meant to say that the internet is the answer to all of our problems. However, we do in this country have remarkable access to a lot of information on the internet. But again, a lot of that information, a lot of the blogs are based on coverage that was done by the traditional media. And we do have this shrinking base of journalists, really professional journalists. We have a shrinking base of them, especially investigative journalists. And there are some efforts to counteract that. ProPublica, for example, is a nonprofit, web-based news organization that tries to provide investigative reporting. But we haven't gotten around that. And yeah, I mean, net neutrality is entirely fascinating and very, I don't think we have time to go into that in any kind of depth today, but that's a very good point.
You know, when I read the press reports on the poll, it was interesting. I noticed that it said that the Occupy movement was slightly more negative than positive, but then when you compare it with the government of Washington and Wall Street itself, you find out that actually it's doing pretty well. I wonder if you could comment on that. I almost felt as if the press reports on the poll didn't adequately cover and maybe even overemphasize the negativity towards the Occupy movement.
Yep. There clearly is widespread antipathy toward Wall Street and toward the government. This gets to a point that Jennifer made about, I think one of your underlying points was that there is widespread agreement with the objectives of Occupy Wall Street, or at least sympathy with the complaints that this movement is making. And we do see that in quite a bit of polling, that there is a sense that income inequality has really grown, and that's not a healthy development. I think what, if I may just kind of move this in the direction of a question for Keith and Jay. I think it will be interesting to see as the winter unfolds and going into next year, the extent to which there is a difference in opinion about the objectives of Occupy Wall Street versus the tactics. I think there's also, I should say, in the case of the Tea Party, that there is some sense there's a split in division over the appropriate role of government. We're a conflicted society in a lot of ways. That nobody wants their taxes to go up. Maybe you're okay with other people's taxes going up. Everybody thinks, a lot of people think that there's a lot of waste in government, a lot of room to cut government, but nobody wants programs that benefit them to get cut. And this leads to the kind of tensions that we see in federal budgeting and budgeting on the state level. So I think, and we saw in some polling, one result that I highlighted from CBS New York Times, that there may be more positive sentiment toward the underlying complaints of the Occupy movement than perhaps there is toward its tactics, which leads to my question for Keith and Jay. I'm very interested, although this is an almost impossible problem in terms of survey research, but I'm interested also in the people who are active in these movements, not just Americans overall who may sympathize with them or not, but with the group that is actually out there. And I wonder to what extent, what's your sense of both the people who are there all the time, who are camping out, who are sleeping in those tents, who are occupying that space, versus those who aren't doing that but may come and go from time to time? And you know, what's your perception of the people who are actually there on the ground? I know there's been a little bit of polling done on Zuccotti Park, although some of it's been pretty questionable. So I'm just curious your take on it.
Well, I would say some of that is structured by some of the fact that not everyone can set a tent. I would love to be there myself, but due to other things I cannot. I don't think Keith is able to either. So what we do is we participate in the movement to as much as we can, which is organizing Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, raising awareness of the situation that's occurring. I think that people who are in the tents are a good representation, like a physical representation of the movement itself, that they are interested, that they care, and that they want to have change something.
Yeah, I was just gonna say am I loud enough? Okay. I think that the physical occupation is an essential part of the movement, but I said earlier that the metaphysical, psychological occupation has to come first, and the awareness of the people. That, you know, the snow will come, it's going to get cold, somebody might freeze to death, but, you know, the movement is way huger. You know, there's a momentum, and that's what needs to be pushed forward and needs to grow, adapt, and mature. And that is not going to take, the physical occupation of that is not as important as the mental part.
I would say that the people in tents are an excellent symbol for what the movement is. They aren't the entire movement, but they are the base of it and the symbolization of the movement.
One quick follow-up. Any concern that the physical occupiers might be seen as extremists?
Well,
or as, you know, just there are pejorative ways that active protesters
well,
can be viewed.
I would say that the start of any protest tends to have its flashy attention style. Right, the symbol, we have the camp idea of being very in your face, very forward about the ideas that we have going forward. So I expect that a lot of the tents, a lot of the attention getting what you're seeing now is just the first wave of it, and following it as the movement becomes more mainstream, you'll get, I guess, less rational, less, more average people participate. I think we're saying that now.
Professor Bob Grant?
I'm curious for the two Iraq veterans toward the end of the Vietnam War, by the early 70s, lots of people coming back, John Kerry for one, made their feelings known in a really big way, and that helped energize the anti-war movement, and it also caused lots of consternation right in the public that some people who had worn the uniform were coming back and were now throwing their medals over the fence. And so I'm wondering whether you've had any, coming here and being identified, and obviously in doing your work, you're identifying yourselves as Iraq veterans, whether how that's been received. One of the criticisms of the anti-war movement was a lot of people in the anti-war movement treated veterans coming back in very disrespectful ways. So I'm just curious, like in overall in all the stuff you've been doing, whether you've heard it from veterans who wouldn't be at Occupy Boston or Occupy Lowell, or from people in the Occupy movement saying, why the hell did you guys go to Iraq? Either way, I'm just curious.
Well, I'd say that there is a lot of patriotism, a lot of support of the military in the United States. To support our troops mentality is real. I've encountered that people come up to me every year and say, thank you for your service. I would say that troop participation, military troop participation in the Occupy movement gives it legitimacy based on the high regard in which the military is held. I know that Occupy Boston had an honor guard of several, wasn't it veterans? I don't know the exact number, when they did their first expansion into the second area of grass. And a lot of the upswing in noticeability of the Occupy movement was this guy Olson, who was an Iraq veteran, he did 2 tours, and he got shot in the head with a tear gas canister. And when that occurred, when they observed that a military veteran was getting a fractured skull and swollen brain due to his participation in a peaceful, nonviolent protest and exercising his First Amendment right, that gave the movement a lot of legitimacy.
Jay, you mentioned post-traumatic stress disorder. The biggest scandal, aside from the decision to come forward, it's great. A lot of people want to give you a pat on the back when you go, and give you a pat on the back when you go back. But our system of health care for veterans is so inadequate. The Veterans Administration's own studies show that we have literally a generation of men and women coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan, and no system to deal with it. It's a crime. I mean, it's just unbelievable to me. And I think, just to see folks that'll give anyone a pat on the back when they come back, but won't provide the healthcare services that are required, that we know clinically are required, is just an incredible outrage when you see that happen. Yes?
I was just wondering some of the common goals of the movement. Like, I'm sure some of them might be like higher tax percentages for higher tax brackets and removal of super PACs and things like that. But I'm just not sure what the common goals are, because we mostly just see the actions and the movements themselves.
Right now, I would say that it's just an awareness, a solidarity. Like, for myself, like a year ago, I would have said, hey, I think something's wrong with the United States. I think the system is broken down. But I had no one to talk to. I had no solidarity with anyone. I didn't know anyone else thought that way. So seeing the occupation was phenomenal for me, because suddenly I saw thousands of people saying, hey, we all think something's wrong. We all want to do something about it. So this year, I've seen a lot of people are meeting together. They're moving communities. They're acting in solidarity, saying something has gone wrong with the system, and we want to do something about it. And I would say the Tea Party is an extension of that. Hopefully, the Tea Party in the '99, something has gone wrong with the American system, and we want to do something about it. What I expect to occur soon is, what we want to do about it. I've heard a lot of solutions, ranging from raising taxes on the rich, just like by 1%, or all the way up to firing everyone in Congress. If you look at, get them out, it's like a webpage that says fire everybody. The middle range, I've seen the case a constitutional amendment separating corporation and state, which would go